I will be linking the pattern in the description, but this pattern calls for 12 strings and 6 colors, which means 2 strands of each color, which 6 times 2 would equal 12. So that's what we're doing for the strings in this pattern. So as you can see here, this is just me securing my bracelet down, and I'm measuring off how much string I want for the tie. So make sure you have at least a little bit so you can make your ties at the end. But make sure you secure it down to your surface, and then I'll be showing you the next step to make the triangle beginning. So for triangle bracelets, you kind of want like a narrow beginning and then it to fade into a bracelet, if you know what I mean. So you're going to section your strings into 2 different sides and make sure there's the same amount of strings of each color on each side. So for this pattern, it would be 1 color of each on each side because 6 and 6. And so you're going to section your strings. So as you can see, I found my first blue, and so in order to make this first knot that the arrows are pointing to, we need to get the string in the middle. So since this string is already on the outside for some reason, I'm just going to make a forward knot with this string over all of the strings on that side. Though you are supposed to do backward,
so as you can see in the picture in the
top right corner
that I
edge,
made, we could
the
have
first
done
knot,
a forward.
you're finding a
So this one is also on
in
the
your
edge
pattern.
on this
So the
side.
first knot,
Since
to
we're doing
start
the
that,
same string color,
is a
you
forward
want to make
knot
sure you
between
find
2 blues.
that matching
So what you're
string.
going to do is you're going to
And
find
obviously I'm
these
having a little bit of
blues,
trouble with that,
which I'm trying
but
to do.
in a second I find the string. So now that I've found that string, since it's on the edge, I can just do a backward knot over all of the other strings with this blue string. Now since we have our blues in the middle like the pattern says, we're going to do a forward knot with them. So if you see between the circles, those little lines of color, those are the strings that's coming into your pattern. So when you're taking your next strand to bring it into the pattern, it would be a light blue because that's what the pattern says to bring into. So now we're bringing our second string into the pattern, and in order to do that, we have to make a backward forward knot onto all of the strings on the left side. And so usually for the left side we do backward forwards, and for the right side we do forward backwards since it's symmetrical. So that's the kind of rule we have to do. So now since that string's from, in the center from the left, we have to do the same thing to the right, but with a forward backward knot this time. Now since we have our strands in the middle for this row,
the pattern calls for a backward knot between the first two strands and a forward knot between the second two strands. So that's what we're gonna do. So as you can see in the picture, we moved down a row to, start widening our triangle. So now we're bringing in a bit of a neutral shade of blue, and as you may know, we're doing the forward backward knot onto all of the strands on the left, and then we are going to do the same thing on the right, but with a forward backward knot. So now that the strands are brought to the middle, the pattern tells us to do a backward forward knot between the first two strands, a forward knot between the second two strands, and a forward backward knot between the last two strands. So you're probably getting the pattern now, but if you're not, we'll keep going with this tutorial. So now we move down another row, and we have to bring our darker shade of blue into the pattern. So we have to make a backward forward on the left side with this color to bring it into the middle. And then we're going to do the same thing on the right, but with a forward backward knot onto all the strands with the color you're bringing into the middle. So for this row, the pattern tells us to do a forward knot between the first two strands, a forward knot between the second two strands, a backward knot between the third two strands, and the backward knot between the last two strands. So since this is the last row of the triangle, this is our last pair we're going to be bringing into the middle. So it's just going to be making one knot onto one strand, but it's still important that you do this because it's going to finish your triangle. So we brought in our dark blue on the left side with a backward forward knot, and now we have to do the same thing on the right but with a forward backward knot. And so the pattern tells us to do 3 forward knots between the first 3 pairs and 2 backward knots between the last 2 pairs. So I went ahead and finished the pattern. I will have a tutorial for that up next week. But for this ending triangle, you need a triangle in your pattern that's facing downward, because you're starting from a thick one, like a thick bracelet, and you want to go down into a narrow bottom. So I found that triangle for you, and basically for this first knot, like this first row in the triangle, you're just going to be making the normal knots as usual. So you're going to be making a forward knot, forward knot, forward knot, backward knot, backward knot, backward knot. So now for the second row in our triangle, we're going to be leaving out one string on the edges, and we're going to make a forward backward knot, forward backward knot, forward knot, backward forward knot, and another backward forward knot. For our third row, we're going to leave another string on the edges out. So every time you're making a triangle ending, for every row you're going to take out another strand. So for this row, it's a backward knot, forward knot, forward knot. So now for our next row, we're going to be taking another string of our outer strings out. And then after we do that, we're going to make a backward forward knot, and a forward backward knot. For our next row, we're going to take another string on the edges out, on both sides by the way, I should have mentioned that before. But then we're going to make a forward knot and then a backward knot. So for our last row, we're going to be taking those two outer strings out and making a forward knot between the two strings that are left. So now you might be wondering what to do with these strings that are sticking out. Well, you're going to take your outermost string and your secondmost string and make a backward knot onto the outer string. Then you're going to take these two as one strand, so you're going to combine them and act like they're one strand. Take your next string and make a knot over these two strands. So after you did that, you're going to continue to add that string into the bundle, and then take your next string and make a backward knot onto this bundle of strings. Now you're going to add that string to the bundle, take your next string, and make another backward knot onto the bundle. And you want to make sure you're doing these knots kind of tight so they cling to the bracelet and it's a triangular form. So since you added that string to the bundle, you're just going to be making this one more string, a backward knot over the bundle. So now you're going to do the same exact thing on this side, but you're going to be doing forward knots since it's a symmetrical pattern. So technically you're done with your bracelet, but you might want to do something with the strings on the ends, your ending strings. So I like to twist mine like this, or you could braid them or fishtail them, but it's up to you. Once you finish up your ties, your ending ties, you can cut off any extra string that might be hanging from the knots that you made. One thing to mention though is these little strings you could probably get rid of, but this extra bit of string you could probably keep. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful on making triangle ends and beginnings. I'll have a tutorial out next week for how to make this entire bracelet, so stay tuned for that. Please like, comment, and subscribe because that means the world to me, and I'll see you next time.